Okay, hey everybody, welcome. This is Thursday afternoon. It is not evening, and my hair is in my face. It is not evening the way we normally do this. It is 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Sorry for a few minutes late here. We had a little bit of a tech issue. I am super much, also not sure where this language is coming from right now, but I'm really excited to have Tamar Ben Tzvi come on today to talk about her life, talk about infertility, talk about her journey, talk about why for her this is something that she wants to make public, even at a time when she's still very much going through it and she's not at the end of her journey, why it's important to her. And I'm just very grateful for her willingness to speak openly about these issues, and I'm looking forward to getting her on here. So the story is, I don't see her yet. Hold on, guys. Let me see if I can grab her. Let's see. Hold on, guys. Stay with me. Sometimes, today technology has been a little strange. We've had there have been a couple of lives which you know about, both on my page and other people's pages, where they just haven't saved, or we've had issues with the connection. So I think today is just one of those days. I see her now. She's actually on the live, so hopefully she's going to come on very soon. I'd love for you guys to be able to ask any questions to her or to me while we're doing this, and if you have any specific topic that you'd like for us to discuss. Otherwise, we're just going to jump in and we are going to chat. Okay. Hi, Tamar, I see you. I sent you a link and I'm waiting for you to come. Waiting. Okay. Well, what else should we talk about in the meantime while we're waiting? This is getting a little silly. She's unable to join. See, told you, tech issues. Here we go. Hold on. Let's see. Maybe she's going to come now. Maybe it's going to work. Maybe. I'm so sorry, guys. I feel like this is not the usual way. Oh, and she's here. Okay, yay.
Hi.
Okay.
How are you?
I am good. Thank God. It's been an interesting tech morning from my end. So hopefully those tech issues are not happening with you.
No worries. All good. I just came back from the grocery store, so
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, Tamar, look, you have a very public page where you talk about lots of different pieces of your story, but many people on here may not necessarily know you or know you as well as some of your followers do. So please introduce us to yourself.
Yeah. Hi. So my name is Tamar Ben Tzvi. I have a crazy life. I think that's just like the best way to say it. I would say I lived in New Jersey most of my life. That's what I was born in Philly. I lived in Brookline, Massachusetts. I lived in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I lived in West Orange, New Jersey. My stepfamily's from East Brunswick, New Jersey. And then I went to school in Teaneck. Like, there was like a lot of changes.
What? A lot in New Jersey.
Yeah, a lot in New Jersey. And there's been like a lot of changes that have happened all throughout my life. Growing up, it was, I never had like the easiest life. And then, I was born with hypothyroidism and diabetes, and I got diabetes when I was 12 years old. We thought I may, yeah.
Yeah. So just tell people, so just to explain, hypothyroid means that your thyroid is not working properly, that it's hypo means less. So just to explain to people so that you were born with that, and then the diabetes came on later. Okay, go ahead.
Well, it's all within the endocrine system. So it's all like connected. It's all like hormonal. So PCOS is like part of that, but we didn't know like how much it would affect me. What it was going to be like for me. So I wasn't like exactly sure, but then when I got married, we like realized like quickly on that, I wasn't getting my period after I got off birth control. And that, we probably, like, we went to the doctor even after 3-4 months, just because we knew that, like, I wasn't getting my period, and we thought, like, something may be up.
And so I guess like the question I have for you is like, that was like 4 years ago-ish, right?
So we got married 4 years ago. We made Aliyah 5 years ago. We met separately. Well, I mean, we made Aliyah separately, and then we met. He actually came in August. I came in September, and then we met in October.
Okay.
So it was like a lot of changes. So the first 2 years we were not trying to have a child, and then basically the past 2 years plus we have been. So we've been struggling, for 2+ years.
Oy. I guess the question really for everybody is for you and for you to share with everyone is, I think the first time that you were sort of public about your story on social media, is when you went onto the Layers Project. But that came after you had already decided in your own personal life that this was not something that you wanted to hide, that this was something that you wanted to be open about. So can you like just walk us through all of that, like where you were holding, where your husband was holding, like, can you just walk us through that?
Yeah, so my husband's just putting away the groceries, so I'm sorry for the noise.
Okay.
But basically, no, okay, so so the first, like, year or so, we kind of kept it, like, not on the DL, but, like, a little bit more quiet. We weren't, like, talking about it all the time. And then what happened was, I think we just kind of felt, like, frustrated because people kept referring to us as newlyweds, which I hated because, like, we were married for 3 years at that point. Like, we're not newlyweds. And then we also, like, live in Ramat Beit Shemesh. And Ramat Beit Shemesh is so family-oriented that, I just felt like either I could feel weird and, like I'm the weird one out, or I could be or I could share my story and people could relate and understand and kind of grasp, like, where we are and where we're holding. So I never really even asked my husband if, like, it was kind of like one of those things that we both kind of just believed in doing more than like we had like an entire conversation of, like, should we be open? There are definitely things I won't share, but for the most part, we're pretty open, especially if people, like, message us. Like, if somebody messages me or my husband privately, I'll share almost, like, a lot, not a lot more because I share a lot, but, like, I'll share more. But yeah, it was just in terms of, like, living in Ramat Beit Shemesh and, my community, we live in there's basically 5 apartments around the park. And the park is, like, in the middle. So, like, you go outside, that's my backyard. My backyard is the park. Everyone's there. That's where that's where the community is, especially during Corona. Like, everyone's hanging out in the park. And I didn't want to be, like, looked at as, like, why is this weird woman in the park with no kids? Or why is my husband in the park without kids? And I think that's even harder.
Yes. And so, like, for you, basically, it felt like in order for people to just understand and for you not to be looked at as other, you had to explain, as opposed to many people who just choose completely the opposite and say, like, my personal life is my personal life. It doesn't matter that, like, I'm surrounded by kids. I don't want to talk. And then people talk behind their backs. Like, and
Exactly.
and say, oh, well, what do you think's going on with them? And what do you, like, when you live in a community like yours or like mine, then those whispers happen. And so you basically chose to sort of take ownership of those whispers and say, like, I'll give you the reason to whisper. Like, this is what's happening, and stop whispering about me.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And I also think, me and my husband discussed for a bit, like if we wanted to live in Jerusalem because we were going through infertility. And in Jerusalem, there's a lot of couples that don't have kids.
Right.
But the reason why we actually, like, we couldn't live in Jerusalem because at the time, my husband was working in Herzliya. And just in terms of, like, geography, like, there's a train from Beit Shemesh, but Jerusalem, it would have been like 2.5 hours or 3 hours. Like, it would have been an insane commute, and we could not live in
Right.
Jerusalem. We couldn't live in another place. We might have been able to, like, live in Givat Shmuel, but, like, for us, we just felt like it was the best option to move to Ramat Beit Shemesh and just deal with the fact that we're struggling with infertility. So we just didn't really see another option for us.
Right. And so you moved into this very family oriented, tons of kids around community already with this diagnosis, and knowing that this was something that you were going to have to deal with publicly just because of the way the community was.
Yeah, I mean, even we lived in a different community the first year. My husband is so funny. Basically, he's just like right here. He's like, the doctors. But no, basically what happened is that we lived in Ramat Beit Shemesh the first year, and I got very close to a bunch of my doctors. So we, like, really, really, really appreciated the doctors. And thanks, Kitty. We really appreciated, like, the doctors, and we had, like, in Ramat Beit Shemesh is kind of different than other places within Israel, that you have, like, you have more American doctors, like, and you have, like, doctors that, like, actually get to know you, like, in a different way. And I really appreciated that. So I wanted to stay in Ramat Beit Shemesh because of that. But yeah, even the first Shabbat that we were in our new community in Mishkafayim, somebody asked me, like, oh, like, about kids, and I'm like, yeah, we're actually struggling with infertility. Like, it was just like the first job. Like,
right, and then what'd she say?
She was like, oh, my friend went through that. Like, I think that's, like, for the most part, like, I think that's the reaction I often get. People are like, okay, like, I know somebody that went through infertility, as opposed to being like, what do you mean? I'm like, why? What is that? Like, I feel like everybody knows someone, and I've actually done polls on my, Instagram of, like, do you know anybody that has struggled with infertility? Because every single person does know somebody. It's just, and I think often we also know people that we suspect, but aren't coming out with their struggle. And that, yeah. I also think that for me personally, like, as I mentioned, life has always been difficult. My father passed away very, very, very suddenly. He was 37 years old, and he passed away when he was from stomach cancer. He got diagnosed on January 9th, 2001, and then he died January 25th. 2000. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, so he died of stomach cancer. And I think it kind of gave me this, like, I just always kind of, like, people would always be like, oh, well, where are your parents? And I'd be like, well, my dad's dead. And my mom, it's just, like, I think when you're so used to calling out the elephant, it's easier in a way.
Right. I look, you and I mean, let's just, say it as it is. You and I had a number of discussions before this where we spoke privately, and I mean, you told me already that your father died when you were younger. And I think that I love the way you just said that, in that for you, talking about difficult things or going through difficult things was something. And as we even started this conversation where you said to everyone, like, I was diagnosed with hypothyroid when I was younger. And then also I have diabetes on top of that. I knew getting pregnant might be an issue because of this piece of, like, that there was a hormonal issue. Like, I for someone like you who has been through a number of different challenges in life, like, not to say that adding another challenge isn't horrific, but more that you like, people like you, when you've been dealt with things in life, you learn to figure out a way through them and manage it.
Exactly. My sister and my brother have gone through a significant amount less than me. Obviously, they also lost their father. But I always say my mom was a single mom for 4.5 years, and I always say that she had, 2 kids, and then she had me. Because, I was just, a crazy child. And, I was the one that gave my mom, her run for her money, And my siblings, we went out to dinner one time, and they were like, yeah, well, obviously you would be the one that struggles with infertility. Now, it's not they weren't saying that in a mean way. They were saying it in you've gone through so much. Of course, this is another part of your package.
Right.
And it is. I mean, I think that for me, so that's why I think this situation that I'm in is also crazy. For anyone that doesn't know, my situation is that I basically have PCOS, and I was diagnosed with PCOS 3 months in. So now we're talking about almost 2 years ago that I was starting with doctors and everything. And unfortunately, due to a lot of stuff with my medical background, I have not even started treatment yet. Meaning it's not in terms of me wanting to. I would love to have, but my doctors have said it's not the right time for you. And even though there are potentially doctors that, I get this question a lot,
Right.
oh, well, why don't you just go to a doctor that, could give you,
Right.
Treatment. I believe that after basically after Corona, and this is where the layers project
Hold on. Are you saying that there is going to be an after Corona? You have a date for that? Because I'd like to. Okay, just
no.
Okay, go ahead.
No. After the lockdown,
Yeah.
After the first lockdown, when we got back to treatment, basically I was supposed to do treatment in March for the first time, and then it was stopped. I was literally starting that week. I went on pre-molt on Purim, and then I was supposed to do letrozole and all that next week, which is the week that Corona really began. So then basically when Corona, when the first lockdown ended, I went back to my doctor, my fertility specialist, and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to start treatment, and they're like, well, you have to go get approved by the high-risk OBGYN. So I went to the high-risk OBGYN, and she was like, well, you can't do treatment because you're really high risk. The more, because of your diabetes, because of your weight, because of all this, if you could have all these issues, and it doesn't make sense for you to get pregnant, especially since you're only 27, because you could, you could be a healthier mother. And honestly, for me, as much as I want my child, and I want my child so badly, in the end of the day, my motto in life right now is healthy mother, healthy child. Healthy mother, healthy baby. And I want to be a healthy mother, and I want to have that healthy baby. So
Look, it's number one, it's a beautiful, many people, I'm not going to venture to say most, because I don't think I have a good handle on most people, but I know that many people I've spoken to, at least, are not willing to wait, are just desperate, and push and push and push, even when their doctors say no. And, sometimes with good outcomes and sometimes not with good outcomes. But I mean, look, kol hakavod to you for, recognizing that, look, we all know you need to have, you want to start with the best possible, mother possible. And yeah, I mean, the fact that you're willing to, sublimate your own maternal desire and both of your desires for a child to make sure that you're in the best place possible is really incredible and really admirable.
Well, I also think it's because I grew up as a medically, challenged kid. I mean, fought through everything and everything was okay. But, being born with hypothyroidism, while, I live a completely normal life, I could have had severe special needs.
Yep.
And I, it really hit me when the doctor was like, your child could have a really hard life if you were to get pregnant now, just because I've had a hard, life. And also I think when you go through a lot and you have like all these different experiences that I've had with the medical world, you're kind of like nervous. And the truth is that I've never in my entire life have I been like, okay, this is what the doctors say, like, let me do it. Like, I question the doctors all the time. It's not like, oh, this is so me that, like, I'm just gonna, like, listen to what the doctors say and, like, hold back. But when it comes to my child, and this is something that I believe in so strongly, like, I cannot have a child unless I'm healthy and my child is healthy, and I just, that's, for me, like, the biggest thing.
Look, it's incredible. I mean, so I guess the question is, what do you say to people who, like, okay, so we know that you spoke to Shira from Layers Project, and she, opened up your story and brought your story to a totally new audience. And then sort of like as an outgrowth of that, with people reaching out to you and wanting to hear more and know more because they saw themselves in you, you decided to start this handle, Strength and Fertility. And first of all, like, I think the name is pretty great because it's like that play on words of like strength in fertility, strength and fertility. Like, you could like say it in, 12 different ways. Obviously done like.
I mean, the thing is that, just in terms of my handle, I'll just say it, like, people ask me, they're like, so when you do get pregnant, and I'm like, what are you going to do then? And I'm like, but that's the whole point. It's strength in fertility. Like, showing my, being being pregnant, being a mother, like, this is not going away. Like, this is something that, every single part of our lives, as women, like, we need to be strong and we need to be healthy. And there's so many topics to talk about that this handle is not just about infertility, it's infertility.
Yep. It's beautiful. And so tell us more, like, so now, you have like taken the bull by the horns, and, your doctors gave you this challenge and said, like, you want to be pregnant, then get yourself more healthy. And so what did that look like for you, and how did you know where to go and what to do? Like, I mean, I know I've seen the pictures with you holding weights, and like I've seen how like different parts of your nutrition and whatever, but like, how did you know what to do, and what do you say to people who are in a similar situation, and what path should they go down?
So I learned a ton about, I'll say, like, I just learned a ton about nutrition and fitness, but my mom, I'm going to take a step back. My mom is a health freak. She's always been healthy. Like, growing up, I was 100 pounds when I was in 4th grade, and my mom has always been 130. Like, my mom is a very healthy, like, my dad was, also super healthy. My stepdad is a marathon runner. Like, I grew up in a healthy home. And the fact that I had diabetes, my mom would always, watch me in terms of my diet and my exercise and like trying to get me involved. And I went to like, it was called Healthy Life. I believe it was called like Healthy Life. And it's a program for kids that are like overweight. And that happened when I was in 8th grade. And like, it was a bunch of, overweight kids that basically like learn how to be healthy and like learn about, working out, whatever. And it was, I always had the knowledge, that's the truth. But for me, it was like, I'm a very rebellious person, which is why it's so interesting that I'm like listening to my doctors right now, as I mentioned. But like, I'm not somebody that's like a rule stickler. I'm like, okay, like, look, the rules here, and so when I've learned what I needed to do, but I just always wanted my unhealthy food, and I don't know, like it was just something that like, I think it was just my rebellious side. And then when I got married, so what happened really was that when I got married and I started my own home, my husband is very, very, very healthy. My husband is so unbelievably healthy. Like I always say, like he went to me the other day. He's like, yeah, when Mashiach comes, we're not gonna have a Yetzer Hara. I'm like, I'm asking him all these questions. I'm like, wait, so are we gonna eat like you? Like, like he never has like these cravings of
I was like, does that mean there's gonna be no chocolate? I'm like, because that would be really bad.
yeah. So I'm like, he's like, I'm just like, because he like literally whatever. He has an insane diet. Anyways, and he like runs all the time. But he never made me feel bad about what I ate. He always gave me what what I wanted, and it was very an accepting place. I think for me, like my mom's comment sometimes would make me go like the other way. And like her fear, and it was from fear. I mean, it was from fear and from care and whatever.
Of course.
But it made me go the other way. And when my husband like let me do what I want, I was able to accept more. And then when but I was still eating. I was still eating horribly. Even the day that I started, May 26th, what happened was that morning I ate Twizzlers for breakfast, and that that night I just
artificial coloring and sugar all at once. What a winning combination!
Exactly. And then that night I gave away all my candy. I gave away all my nosh. And I was like, okay, because the highest could be Joanne was like, you got to, if you want your child, like, you got to fight for it. So I just I like got rid of everything, and I'm like, okay, it's out of the home. And I started to redo my pantry. That was like a very, very big step. And, the first week what I did was I just like learned about, like, I was just like, okay, fine, like more protein, less carbs. And then I got in touch with Liat Buckman from the Fresh Sabra. Okay. And she basically, like, her page wasn't in existence. We just found each other. And she is a person she is in her second year, I think, of like nutrition school. And she was like, okay, I have this like plan and I'm going to help you. And one of the things that she did was she just taught me all about the ingredients that I was eating. And that's something that I never really learned so much about. So it was like I learned what oils to have and what flour to have and what, all these different things, what fat means, how much calories are in stuff, and just the education of, as the person that I work with, as Tova Eastman always says, like, knowledge is power. And I really, really believe that knowledge is power, that like the more knowledge we have, like the more that we can be in charge of our life. And I think for me, like, Liat made me count all my macros, my carbs, my proteins, my fats. Now I don't do that but it got me to my body to switch, my cravings to switch. For those 3 weeks, I was like literally everything that I ate, and then I was able to adjust and now live intuitively that way.
I think that that's the goal for any of us. Like, obviously this page has nothing, we don't talk about diets, we don't talk about intuitive eating, we don't talk about any of that, but the general overall movement in medicine and in health overall is for people to have a better knowledge base in terms of what they're eating, and then to be able to make intuitive choices that help to nourish their bodies, and that no foods are off limits, and that everything in moderation, but that the core of your diet should be the things that properly nourish you.
Exactly.
And so I guess, yeah. Okay, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I also really invested in. I was working at this job that was very tedious at the time, and so what I did was actually I would listen to podcasts, and I would just listen to 6 or 7 podcasts in a day, and a lot of them were about health and nutrition. So I would just like educate myself and through podcasts, through talking to Liat, like just the more education, the better. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, look, I guess the question for you is, as we're like winding up here, is really, what do you say to the person who was like you a few years ago? Like, what do you say to that person who, isn't getting their period, doesn't really know what to do, hasn't figured it out? Like, how, like, you've been through the reason why, you people relate to you and people feel comfortable with you is because you have this beautiful openness in terms of the way you present yourself and the things that you're going through. And obviously we all know that there are things that need to stay private and things that don't. Like, that's without question. But for that person out there, like, we all do this. We all have these handles because we want to help that next person. So what are your thoughts? What's your advice to that person?
So I I really believe that every single person is unique and every single person has a unique situation and no two people are the same. So I think that's like the first thing I want to say is that, it's something that I feel like if they came to me and I'd want to speak with them about what they're going through and understand. I think that's something about my page that is very, very important to me, that like it's a non-judgment zone. So literally there's no judgment and I post, different things and people do message me. They're like, why did you post that? Like, and that's not, halachic. That's not, and I'm not posting things that are necessarily not halachic, but I'll post things that maybe a little bit like controversial because it's important to talk about. And so I think for me, like every single person is unique and every single person has their own story, and understanding that story is really key. But I think, in terms of myself, because this is something that I have gone through a lot, because I'm like, well, why didn't I start this, 2 years ago? Why didn't I, get healthy 2 years ago? Why didn't I listen to my parents when I was younger?
It's the negative self-talk. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. There could be a lot of regret and frustration, and I could be very mad at myself. But I think that there's a time and place for everything. And the fact that I'm 27, while I did get married when I was 23, and my husband is turning 29 on Sunday, and that is, thank you, but it's also killing me, because, I would love for him to be a father before he's 30, so it's really, really hard. But I think for me, like, the fact that we got married at 23 and 24 means that, when we, have a child, even if we are 30, like, okay, like, we'll get there and we have time to figure this out. Like, that, I think for me, that's a huge bracha. It's just the time that, we got married young. But I just think that every single person has a different story. And that's why I created my page to hear, in the beginning also one of the things about my page that I am very, 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 happy with, my sister said to me this week, she's like, well, where are you taking this page? And I'm not taking it anywhere. Meaning this page is, I decided when I created this page that this was going to be like just about my life and about things that I'm thinking about and people are thinking about, and there's no future. Obviously, in Mir Hashem, there's a future, and I think about the future, and I'm so excited, and actually, engagement means more to me than followers, but we're almost at like 1,000 followers, and that's really exciting to be at like that 1,000 followers, and I delete all the bots and those like everyone is a real follower, that is a real person, that has a real opinion. And I think for me, like, my the page, what I want for the page in the future is just like to continue to be real and just about what people are thinking. And there's no like, goal. There's no goal. It's just
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
and talking about life.
Amazing. Amazing. Look, it's a beautiful space, and I know a lot of people really value it. And, your story and this space that you've created is something that I wanted to be able to bring here so that, offer another opportunity for people that there are lots of different ways that people connect, and different personalities that people connect to. And so that's why I try to do these lives with different kinds of people who have different professions or have different outlooks. And so it's important to try to showcase all of that because we all have a story and they're all
Yeah,
important.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think also for me, like one of the things that I'm very, I was talking to somebody today on my page, and she said to me, she's like, "Wow, it's so crazy, like how much social media people do, and like they don't get it." She's like, "They don't get enough credit," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's actually really crazy. Like the amount of times that I have woken up in the middle of the night and have like checked my messages, and like I'll have messages from people about like." People message me all the time about like serious things. And I'm not their therapist. I'm not going to talk to them like a therapist for sure. But like I am a listening ear, and and I'm an anonymous listening ear, and I'm not a judgmental person. And I'm happy to talk about anything. And for people to have that person, I think is really, and that person that responds quickly to them. I think I hope that that's part of why people enjoy my page and enjoy being part of. As somebody also said that today, it's a group. It's not a page. It's a group of people that are sharing anonymously.
Right. That's the beauty of Instagram. That's the beauty of
Yeah,
Instagram. Okay, Tamar, thank you so much.
my pleasure.
Guys, you can find her on Strength and Fertility. And thank you for sharing your time, your story, and of yourself. And we'll be in touch as we continue to do.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions or if anyone wants to talk about anything, obviously feel free to, PM me, and I'm happy to talk about anything.
Excellent, excellent, amazing. Okay, take care. Good night. Have a good Shabbos. And
Thank you.
okay, bye bye, guys.
Bye.